amidst all of these issues relating to perhaps how the government of the day is faring, not only whether the media is faring good under this administration in terms of the ability for the media to exercise its duty without being witch hunted by the government of the day or being tracked, and issues relating to the balance of the thought across the nation, especially when there is now a global pressure on what the government of the day is doing in terms of security. I'm being joined tonight to take the conversation forward by Mr. Dahiru Majeed, who is a policy, governance, and political analyst who is live for us here in our studio. It's a pleasure having you join us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You heard what the president said.
Yes.
And there was a lot of acknowledgement. These are the leaders of Nigeria's media outfits across the private and public sectors seated there, and you could see, and if you look at those who are around the president, you will see that a lot of them are being in the media, and very senior members of the media, the likes of Bayo Nonuga, Dele Alake, and he's had very eminently senior people, like, in fact, someone like, you see Tunde Rahman, Sunday Dare, Tunde Rahman, who was working with The Punch at the time. Also, Toyin Zubar, who is also a media entrepreneur. He has around him a very strong media personalities. But then, would you say that that government understands media and perhaps the ability to be able to withstand what kind of pressure the media also could bring?
I think in terms of media management and relations, the Tinubu administration in about 2 years plus now in government has been an improvement upon the previous administration. I think they've been less confrontational. They have been more forthcoming with engagements, more forthcoming with collaborations. And if push comes to shove, they simply put out their own narrative there with those that are promoting such narratives to balance whatever it is that they consider to be too cynical or too critical of their policies and programs in the public space. So to that extent, as a media practitioner, I can attest to the fact that we have a little bit of more freedom to practice our profession. They've really relaxed some of the mercurial, if you like, draconian tendencies of trying to use state institutions, regulatory bodies, so like the NBC, to actually stifle free speech. We've not experienced that so far. If you also observe, we've not seen the Minister for Information obsessed with trying to, should I say, regulate social media. In the past administration, it was a buzzword. For 8 years, they were preoccupied with efforts to regulate the use of social media, for instance. But under the current administration, we've not really had that. So I think so far so good. And the icing on the cake for me is the fact that the president, President Bola Tinubu, is the first sitting president, at least in the Fourth Republic, to have attended the Nigerian Guild of Editors conference.
In about 20 years or more.
In about 20 years or more. So that tells you the premium with which he holds the media. And it's quite commendable.
You look at Bola Tinubu and you say he has a lot of media expertise around him. But have they been able to utilize it as much as possible? Yes, there might be a tendency that there is an understanding that this was where a lot of them who surround him belong, and the fact that they need to also, now they are on the other side, they cannot stifle freedom of press, but the fact remains that public relations, management of information, you see what happened in the Trump situation. Has there been proactiveness rather than reactiveness that we have seen? How would you describe how they've been able to manage and package the government and Bola Tinubu as an entity?
Okay, the Minister for Information, Mohammed Malagi, who is a veteran, public relations expert and a publisher in his own right, has been able to bring some sort of finesse, some sort of clarity, and non-combative approach, non-confrontational approach in communicating government positions. And to that extent, what he has done is that he's been able to admit sometimes when government may have not done certain things right, while taking criticisms as a form of feedback mechanism from the media and promising to do better. So to that extent, they've been able to somewhat douse tension. You know, I knew what we went through, what was went through in the last 8 years, when you had the government to contend with on every issue. I mean, it was as if the government was so obsessed by public opinions that everything was brought down, you know, to make sure that people do not speak freely. I mean, it was another government that Twitter was banned in Nigeria, for instance. But the Minister of Information has done a lot. Yes, once in a while, we see some of the presidential aides, maybe out of personal loyalty to the president, going overboard sometimes to present certain positions. But I think the minister is trying, particularly in the case of the American and Trump Buhari recently about genocide and terrorism in Nigeria. We saw disparate tones come out of the presidency. But once the Minister of Information held that press conference and essentially committed that we've taken note of what our international friends and allies are saying, this is what we are doing so far. The government is not complicit in whatever killings that is going on in Nigeria, and we are doing our best while engaging with them to see whether we can have more collaborations to bring security to Nigeria once and for all, to end once and for all. So to that extent, I think he's been able to manage it properly. All I would say is that maybe if others can simply allow him to continue to manage the communication coming out of the government, I think it will be more tidy and better for the government and for the president himself.
In terms of diplomacy, that a lot of people are asking for, that this government needs to, in every channel possible, country to country now, based on, because we've since not heard from Donald Trump, from all of those social media messages that he has released on how he's going about his so-called military intervention in the case of what is happening in Nigeria or what has happened in Nigeria. But in country to country and the manner in which things have gone over the last few weeks or days, how would you assess how this government had reacted? Were they panicky? Did they show you an initial panic? Well, did that help the cause?
I think it was a shock in the first place because nobody expected that the president of America will actually threaten a direct military intervention in Nigeria to put an end to terrorism, particularly as it concerns targeted killings of Christians. So I'm sure they quickly recovered from that, and the statement that came from the president eventually during the last FEC meeting complemented what the Minister of Information had put out a few days earlier, which is to say, in summary, we have taken note of your concerns, we have been doing a lot to combat this same issue, and we are willing and ready to partner with you to put an end to this menace. That, for me, was also a very good statement coming out of the presidency. However, in terms of diplomatic engagements, I think this is not the best of times in terms of relationship between Nigeria and the United States of America. I say this because this is the first time since 1999 that an elected Nigerian president would not have had a one-on-one meeting with the President of America, either in Nigeria or in the White House. If you recall, the predecessors of this current president, within 1 year of the election as president, would have had that, meeting, because Nigeria is a major ally of the United States in the African continent. That hasn't happened. That means all is not so well between these two countries. And now, added to this...
Is it the countries or the leaders? In terms of relationships?
The leaders represent the country.
Or the priorities the leader of our country pays to the interest of America and America's interest in Nigeria. And I give an example. The trips and the relationship with China, the trips and relationship with France, the trips and relationship with other countries, Brazil and all that, where some of these leaders have been met, or even the United Arab Emirates, or even Saudi Arabia. The leader of our country has met some of these leaders more than once in some cases.
Yes.
So you wonder, whether or not our non-alignment, diplomatic, international policy or orientation has really been jettisoned or drowned to some kind of alignment with China, some other interests, or Brazil, or BRICS-related interests.
But I just think that given the importance of the United States to America, in terms of security cooperation, in terms of economic cooperation, one would have expected that the President of America would have extended an invitation to the leader of the largest or the most populous black country on the continent for a state visit, as used to be the tradition before now. That hasn't happened. Neither has Trump also visited Nigeria. If you recall that President Clinton visited Nigeria, President George Bush visited Nigeria, while Yar'Adua visited George Bush, I think within the first 6 months of his election as president. The same thing with President Goodluck Jonathan. In fact, President Buhari visited the White House before his cabinet was ready. So this shows that there is a gap. Now, for me, we need to reconstruct our relationship with the United States of America, as well as all other development partners, while sustaining our relationship with some other, I won't say rival powers, but some other alternative or alternate powers. But with regards to the current issue at hand, I think the president himself is the biggest solution to this problem. Because I've looked at other countries that have been placed on the list of particular concern. And I realized that there are some missing gaps that Nigeria does not really, that makes Nigeria not so qualified to be on that list. And what are those missing gaps? If you look at countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like Myanmar or Burma and China, they feature prominently on that list, along with Nigeria now. But in all of these 3 countries that I've mentioned, the central governments of these countries are actively, through policies, through programs, through even legal frameworks, violating religious freedoms. It's a state policy for these countries. In the case of China, for instance, the concern for the Americans has to do with the treatment of the Uyghur Muslim population of China and the obstruction of their rights to religious practice of the Islamic faith. In the case of Myanmar, for instance, it's the same thing. The persecution of the Muslim Rohingya population by the Burmese government is what has placed them on that list. And these 2 countries are not apologetic about it at all. Saudi Arabia is a mono-religious country that don't allow any other religion to exist. And they are comfortable with the designation because that is what it is. But in the case of Nigeria, President Tinubu as a president cannot by any stretch of imagination be accused of religious bigotry or having sympathy with Islamist jihadi terror groups. Absolutely not. You can criticize him for every other thing, but nobody can actually criticize him for this because he does not qualify for such criticism. So meaning that alone is something to bargain to say, look, I'm the president of this country. I'm the commander-in-chief. There is no one can preside over a country and sit idly by and allow or encourage or aid and abet the killings of Christians in my country.
But could it also be, Mr. Dahiru, that if you look at the combative nature of Donald Trump to leaders of countries that he perceived to have had some kind of
relationship with
rival powers, and maybe he doesn't really agree with them. And you can give 2 obvious examples. You saw what happened in the Oval Office. I mean, it wasn't the Oval Office. What he did with the Ukrainian president, and what happened with the South African president, and the altercations and the kind of confrontations that came. In the case of the Ukrainian president, even Vice President Vance was coming in, was interrupting, and they were literally subduing that man in his chair, in that sense, starting from how he was dressed and all whatnot. I mean, that alone, will it encourage any leader of any country to even want to sit in any chair within the White House corridors?
Well, the difference here is that at least he has extended an invitation to the Ukrainian president and the South African president to come and discuss these issues. And if you look at Trump's position right now in the Ukraine-Russian war, despite his misgivings or prejudice against Mr. Zelensky, he's beginning to have an even-handed approach to that conflict. I mean, the recent sanctions against Russia and the threat to do much more appears to have been as a result of the diplomatic effort of Mr. Zelensky. If you look at the issue of South Africa as well, while it is not yet over, talks are ongoing. I'm saying we've not been given that opportunity. He has not given that opportunity to our president to sit down and have a talk about this matter. And I am saying the president himself has done certain things that should break the ice. Apart from his personality, nobody can accuse him of being a religious bigot. There's some other thing he has done that he can leverage on. I'm aware, for instance, that in the course of his visit to the United Arab Emirates, a close ally of the United States, he was able to broker defense, armament, and procurement deals that has resulted into the restocking of military hardware and certain relevant equipment, if you like, that can be used to decisively deal with ISWAP. And ISWAP being the major culprit in the issue of targeted Christian killings in Nigeria, this clearly shows you that the president has taken certain steps to make sure that the armed forces are able to contain and defeat ISWAP once and for all. And thankfully, he had this arrangement with the UAE. So I'm saying, for instance, this is an evidence that he's doing so much, even though it has not yielded the necessary result, he's doing so much to defeat the very jihadi group that is mostly responsible for targeted cases of Christians in Nigeria. So what does he have to do now? I think he needs to approach the United Arab Emirates authorities in this regard. Qatar has also been an ally of Nigeria, and the president has visited Qatar a couple of times, and they've had very useful bilateral discussions and agreements that borders on trade and security. So the Qataris also can be approached to mediate diplomatically between Nigeria and the White House, with the United Arab Emirates standing as a witness to the fact that the Tinubu administration in 2 years has done a lot with regards to the agreement they have to combat terrorism in Nigeria. I want to believe that if this is communicated through friendly allies of the United States, such as the UAE and the Qatari authorities, it might melt the eyes of the White House and allow for a conversation that can result into a collaboration between Nigeria and the United States to put an end to terrorism in Nigeria once and for all. I believe that what Trump has done is a shock therapy to Nigeria to wake up. Wake up and understand that the world is watching, and we cannot continue to have these sickenings going on without bringing to an end. So
you heard
me,
what,
there's an opportunity in this challenge that must be combated.
You heard what Pastor Adeboye said.
I completely align with his opinion and his views on this matter. And I'm saying, without having any direct information about this, but you can see that there's a frustration between the White House and Aso Rock. And I'm saying they should approach the White House now through the UAE authorities, who can stand as witness to say this man has come here and we have had arrangements to enrich the stockpile of his armed forces to combat Israel specifically. And the Qataris, also being a friendly nation, should broker that truce between the United States and Nigeria so that we can move forward on this matter.
There are those who are blaming President Bola Tinubu for a specific action that he has failed to do. Appointment of ambassadors. And the word on the street is that there are more people lobbying in the interest of what Donald Trump said as to genocidal claims on Christians in Nigeria. There are more people talking about, more Nigerians and more people in Washington, D.C. talking about it than Nigerians, those who are advocating on behalf of the Nigerian government. There is like a breakdown on Nigeria's government's own ability to have boots on the ground in terms of diplomatic mind to be able to avail the American government their own side of the story. And that those who say it's a failure on this side of on the part of that government and a great oversight.
It's a great oversight indeed. You see, in the global world today, the contemporary world, diplomacy is the oil of national security and national economic development. Because the diplomatic outputs all over the world are essentially your marketing outputs. It's like these are your chief marketers of the economy and chief guarantors of your national security. So it's expected that as soon as the president is elected, within a few weeks or months of election, he must have sent ambassadors to our most important and critical diplomatic outposts overseas. That was definitely a major failure on the part of the government. However, I must say this too. You see, when we talk about lobbyists in the United States, talking about killing of Christians, we must not confuse certain things in order not to go into, should I say, diplomatic logjam in the long run. One thing is a reality in Nigeria. There are targeted killings of Christians. I can't say this enough. And no attempt, no effort was made to deny it. There are. Now, the argument as to whether the killings have gotten or the numbers have risen to genocidal proportions is a matter of semantics. But one thing is clear. Genocide starts with one killing. One. Killing of one person. And genocide is always reported in the past tense, meaning sustained killing over time will satisfy the definition of genocide by all and sundry that are having conversations on this matter now. So what have we said in essence? One thing that is a fact between all parties is that there are targeted killings of Christians. I've heard the argument that Muslims are killed as well. And I say yes, Muslims are killed as well. But the jihadi groups that are killing Muslims because they do not consider those people to be Muslims. But the jihadi groups that are killing Christians actually kill them because they are Christians. This is the difference.
And we cannot deceive ourselves.
We shouldn't live in this denial at all. So it's not about going to counter lobbyists in Washington to say this is not happening.
It's how we deal with it.
To say that as a country, we have dedicated the largest land military operation since the Civil War to combat this menace, to show that we're making effort. It is to say that our president, for instance, cannot preside over the killings of Christians because he would have endangered his own wife and children. It is to say that, look, we have entered into agreements, we have sought help from our friendly country like the UAE, and they've given us some help to show that we are serious about combating it. Meaning that the government is not aiding and abetting it, unlike the case we have in Burma, where the government of Burma aided and abetted the killing of Rohingya Muslims, where the Chinese authorities are restricting the just freedoms for the Uyghur Muslim population of that country, or where Saudi as a state policy do not allow any other religion to exist except Islam.
Right,
but in the case of Nigeria, the central government, is not in this category with other countries. So that can be leveraged on to say, look, we are willing to partner to do the needful. So our partner ambassadors is to simply go there and say, look, these things exist, but we need more help than we can get it now to put an end to this menace once and for all.
All right, give me a moment. We're going to break everyone, but when we return, there is another matter that is of concern, and this government needs to actually watch it. There's been a disastrous run in the implementation of the budget. Up next on the program, I will be joined also by Seun Onigbinde, co-founder of Budget, and we'll be talking about how it has been a messy implementation and execution of the budget. Quickly, Mr. Dahiru, your thoughts on this, a very brief one.
No, for me,
where do we go from here?
No, the challenge right now that we are faced with as a country should be converted to an opportunity to solve all of our existential problems, economic, social, security, once and for all. Because the kind of tantrums we've received from Mr. Donald Trump simply tells you that our status in the global space is not as high up there as it should be. So that should be a wake-up call, a shock therapy, to wake us all up from all of the issues we'll be discussing.
Right.
And I hope that we'll get there someday.
Mr. Dahiru, thanks so much indeed. Always a pleasure having you. Mr. Seun Onigbinde, the co-founder of Budget Foundation. Thanks so much indeed, gentlemen. That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Seun Okimale. God bless Nigeria.